Hi and welcome. This episode is a part of the InfoSec Philosophy and Theory series, which connects to the Local Intelligence series. And I'm excited to read my member-only article from Medium, and I will be greatly enjoying introducing this concept that I have about mapping the right security subcultures. And that is the title of this episode. So let's get started. For those tuning in visually, I'm about to show the map. Here it is. So as you can see, I'll explain how part 1 is about defining the cultures, part 2 is about the problems and the solutions, and part 3 is the maps themselves. So you have the subheadings here where within the definition of cultures there's national, there's security subcultures, and the aspects of multidimensional and deep ecological cultures. And then in pink, below these, with which I believe Bitcoin coexists, is the individual personal culture. In the second part, the problems, some of them are the competing nations and the obscurity of, let's just say, the situations. And some of the solutions that I propose and can be proposed, for example, has to do with the onset of the new so-called artificial intelligence prompts. So prompt intelligence. And then I believe that decentralized collaborative local care may also have an effect. And you can see that this relates back to the individual personal definition of culture. And on the map, you can see how the interrelations and how all these topics merge together. And then the maps in part 3 show the local security mappings, in which there is recon, so reconnaissance, because we're the Bitcoin Security Maps podcast, and my specialization is web application security testing, because it relates to Bitcoin in the sense that all the applications on the internet that use Bitcoin require a certain degree of security. Right, and so Recon is below the maps for local security mappings, and it relates to prompt intelligence because we'll be increasingly using artificial intelligence or a certain type of computer instruction and code that runs a certain way algorithmically. And then the layers of the mappings. Okay, so let's get started with the article itself. I'm going to load that up. And there it is. So it's called, the title is Mapping the Right Security Subcultures, published on Cyberpower Telenoia, which is my Medium publication. At the moment, I will be publishing on NOSTR too, so by the time you see this, it might be up on one of those platforms. The title image there I have is, and this is significant because it has to do with AI, in quotation marks, it's the prompt that I used to generate this image. And these images in my articles continue to evolve. This one was simply elegant cyberpunk photograph of glowing mountain biosphere park and a small futuristic community. A text-to-image prompt on Runway ML. This article is about the various dimensions of security in culture, the problems that arise, and the mappings of solutions. Part 1 defines cultures, national cultures, multidimensional security subcultures, deep ecological security subcultures, and individual personal culture. Part 2 is about the problems, spiraling competitive nations, and obscured states of consciousness, and solutions. building a language of prompt intelligence, and decentralized collaborative local care. Part 3 is about maps, local security mappings, and layers of maps. So now we get into part 1, defining cultures. National cultures. Culture is how people share their time and values throughout societies on the planet, over generations spanning millennia. In an objective sense, the continued preservation of those cultures which transmit life wisdom is essential for civilization. The security for the preservation of culture can perhaps be accomplished with the right security subcultures. There are also people without culture working behind closed doors for transnational companies that gather cultural data for themselves in order to create code only they see, working with money only they have. The kind of culture one belongs to, knowingly or unknowingly, is significant because this may dictate how one's time and freedom can be issued in this life, unless one takes individual responsibility for all cultural measures. Moreover, and more so these days based on global news fronts, national culture appears to be the secret layer of agenda of a standalone transnational culture based on macroeconomic control. When one celebrates any select national day of culture, then one is celebrating the way money is made within that national culture, the particular calculations of the economic energy of one's time and freedom. This varies between nations and their cultures. If this economic energy is not money and is merely fiat currency instead, then one may literally be celebrating slavery unknowingly. People form cultures by being together. Yet, people are decentralized, meaning all over the planet, by nature, the deep ecological culture of the Earth. Technologically, in order to coordinate and accomplish aims common across distant cultures, in software engineering, the open source movement belongs to the people because it is decentralized. Bitcoin is the people's decentralized open source money. So who works in the right security subcultures with common aims of the people? Only those whose national cultures have the civilian intelligence to have common aims and a right security subculture. Culture makes for unique relationships with the right environment, customs, languages, postures, arts, rituals, and impacts the design and flourishing of cities through corresponding infrastructure based on the shared values of a particular culture. Cultures are often protected naturally by the people who simply continue to enjoy celebrating life together in their nation, state, municipality, and neighborhood community. Multidimensional security subcultures. Security subcultures sometimes exist to specialize in protecting the vulnerable aspects of a national culture. And there are many reasons for this. For one, when another culture takes over, this can shift the values of an entire population in support of a foreign nation with a different organization of society to support its own interests. The popular social media platforms of today are an example of the global takeover of youth, which is being assimilated by unknown agendas of transnational private democratic, capitalist organizations for sociopathic profiteering aims designed in secret layers to appear as legal, legitimate business. When one experiences the uplifting objective values of a particular culture, then its long-term treasury becomes a necessity, and civilian intelligence as well as security subcultures are part of daily life. Attention to the security culture corresponding to one's needs is possible only when there is understanding. This can be achieved through multidimensional attuned learning, as described in my previous article about multidimensional mapping, in a framework of multidimensional context for web app security. As an example, the consensus between dimensions within a sphere can be seen as understanding. However, such understanding must be of the highest degree possible within this realm. Objective reality is not a narrative a few ordinary people have an opinion about. Security must be set as highest priority multidimensionally when working with critical controls for the maintenance of the right holistic aims. To this extent, if one is working with an audit of the knowledge base of electricity, then one's sphere of multidimensional security concerns must include the possibility of existence of unknown cosmic laws of this planet within this realm. The Disclosure Project Intelligence Archive, DPIA, launched in the spring of 2024, is an example of such critical information in the public domain. Let's launch this. I just clicked on the mentioned Disclosure Project Intelligence Archive, and you see here, if you're a first-time user, you may register there to access all the content. I think I'll do a separate episode on this, but I do have an account, and it's worthwhile having a peek there. It's free, and it's quite the disclosure. For now, back to the article. Deep ecological security subcultures. In cities especially, culture belongs to those who maintain the constitutional connection between deep ecology and the youth of humanity. The people who feel a need to maintain a holistic thriving of life on Earth. Security subculture is about having multidimensional clarity about how the local system operates and where objective culture can be found within. Those experiential sources which inspire new generations to care and have a need for understanding the meaning of nature on this planet. Deep ecology is what needs to be secured if one cares for life here and beyond. The primary infrastructure of a contemporary system includes electrical energy sources, clean water sources, sources of nutrition, telecommunications channels, and economic energy markets. I would mention, without reading this, that the telecommunications and energy markets need their own sources, as the previous mentioned infrastructure and sources of generation, but also sources of distribution, for example. So the wires, the cables through which everything runs. Now continuing, the security subcultures involved in protecting these are compartmentalized secret layers of civilization. It seems many of those working in this space are in the dimension that those in the secret layer find desirable for that position in order for it to remain subordinate, a low-level, specialized professional business person. Individual personal culture. My reasons for working in InfoSec are outlined in the introductory article to my publication, Cyberpower Talanoia. It's primarily because the potential of humans using computers can be exciting when applied in a positive, objective sense. Through a path of personal evolution applied to my work-life balance, I maintain an individual culture. The clarity I have experienced at times provides for a strong sense of the fact that personal holistic health can make space for a civilian intelligence, giving rise to the possibility of amazing solutions to major issues in society. For example, original cultures present for millennia had obviously benefited from their respect of the natural environment providing for their welfare. This is precisely what is needed as the alignment framework for a safe artificial general intelligence, or AGI. Paradoxically, the greatest threat to original cultures is now misaligned artificial intelligence, and the people with a mental illness of a total disregard for life, usually executed intentionally through covert maliciousness and malevolence. I believe that the defensive risk mitigation and simultaneously the offensive exploit against threats aimed at destroying critical resources of this realm is clarity of meaning in the experience of consciousness. My maps are that which shows I work towards this clarity. There is a way to maintain this exploit. I write about this in Vipassana for Web3 DeFi InfoSec. I believe that the abundant lack of global technological literacy is being ferociously abused by threat actors. I write about this in Flashing Cells of Digital Illiteracy. Entire populations are confused, their attention is being taken, and many are not able to discern reality from illusion due to a lack of maps of meaning within their national cultures and individual personal cultures. Within our context in the field of cybersecurity, websites can have bugs which lead to vulnerabilities and possible exploits because humans have not been capable of developing a technology which helps a computing machine discern its own code from that of another. It's all the same signal and code. Most hacking and cracking reported in the news media has technologically arisen from the manipulation of code and signal. Most social engineering, the psychological version of this, is the manipulation of mind and thought, one's individual holistic clarity over time. One might have to do the equivalent of tagging or cryptographically signing individual electrons in a signal transmission in order to track the actual origin of an element of code. This secret layer of work might be possible by high-level humanity, meaning those with a developed multidimensionality within their sphere. Ordinary people have already written code which is self-powered, emergent, and capable of manifesting and affecting physical reality. As mentioned, this code is equally incapable of differentiating itself from an inserted code or tainted data from a threat actor. Now on to part 2, Problems and Solutions. Spiraling competitive nations. Nations have existed naturally in many environments for human evolution in any given area, providing cultural identity, economic stability, governance, and law. Yet, in contemporary times, nations seem to exist because of a savagely competitive humanity increasingly ready for weaponized militaristic conflict. A military secures the nation, its own jurisdiction. Why? To maintain its constitution. Why? Because some humans are increasingly unconstitutional, meaning maliciously out of control, rogue. What is a rogue dark triad? Usually a mental illness caused by an entity which succeeds in psychopathic, sociopathic, narcissistic power trips at responsible positions within their culture and thus society. My hypothesis regarding the dark triad is that their glorification in the media and tolerance by the majority of people is the main human issue on the planet. Misaligned neurological pathways with the resources, motivation, and skill to build. What is mental illness? Often it is unhealed trauma. Where is trauma from? Wars, ecological destruction, poverty, technologies infused with code written by the dark triad. A downward spiral. Civilians secure the culture of their respective nations by giving up their time and freedom to pay for their lives, which they celebrate. I'm a civilian too. I celebrate that. Those who are not civilians create programs, national identities, primarily based on macroeconomic relationships, in order to pursue their militaristic competitive aims and to keep civilians on agendas which appear to be national values. Nations are heading, not hearting, towards nuclear weaponized military war for time and freedom of their own economic aims, not those of their civilians, which they will replace with robots as soon as they can. Obscured states of consciousness. The automated consumption of digital media through technological illiteracy is the main individual human weakness in society. This becomes a vulnerability when it is known that a mind can be manipulated with media content originating from a foreign culture. If the river which provided the basis for the existence of your hometown was poisoned in your lifetime, after a few thousand years, with few people reacting, then what is happening in this culture and its corresponding security subculture? And if you wish to work in security here, who would you work for? Building a language of prompt intelligence. Language is often the natural resource of a nation, its inherent intelligence. Therefore, civilian intelligence, based on the exchange through language, is the raising of one's value in that nation. Excessive wiseacring on the downward spiral has the opposite effect. Artificial intelligence is the new co-creator of intelligence, as long as one has language capabilities and powerful enough intentions. One must have intelligence to prompt. We are building prompt intelligence. Decentralized collaborative local care. To understand this work, one has to care and have a need. This comes naturally, although it is possible to fake this motivation as human and as a learned machine. A maturing human being perceives more of reality as it is. A non-maturing human has no care and no need because it's not within their direct experience of reality to care or have a need, as long as basic needs can be instantly gratified. A machine is whatever the human alignment it has access to. If machines can be connected to more developed states of consciousness and life after death, then that will be a different story. But for now, this story is what popular contemporary civilization agrees is real on Wikipedia, for which I gladly pay a yearly membership in support of the work there. My culture of technological care is to provision my own decentralized hardware with a clean, holistic environment, with my own economic energy, attached to my own cryptographic private keys, in order to be able to exchange my own valuable content with a global podcast audience, as I am doing now. I am not alone. There is much help for those who seek. Online collaboration is a specialty of the decentralization movement. It is part of a new business model for the open source movement. Decentralization delivers value. No company can disrupt decentralization, because it is a fundamentally new paradigm belonging to the people. Decentralization in the sense of fault tolerance, attack resistance, and collusion resistance. Part 3. The title is Maps. Local Security Mappings. I plan to map the local system. This begins by following the money in order to see where investments into culture originate. So money is also almost like an invisible part of the infrastructure, so we're sourcing the money here too. Starting at ground zero by mere civilian observation and open source intelligence, or OSINT. Are the values of the people reflected in the local system? Who are the people? Where are they from? Is the local culture my culture? I can live with my individual culture within any national culture, but if these do not align, then I am not fully alive, and neither is the nation. Life is disconnected from the source and destroyed. What is available in the open? In open, it seems everything is fine because daily life seems to be happening. Where I am at right now, Google even has a big logo high atop a main intersection. Yet the river was fully poisoned the other year, and apparently all the fish died. This was reported in the news and witnessed locally for the 1,000 kilometers of river flow. That's an estimate. The river must be at least a few hundred kilometers long here. I'm talking about the Oder River, Odra. Perhaps not so strangely, and in accordance with what is being stated here regarding culture, people can be seen fishing again merely 2 years later. Layers of maps. This is a mapping attempt founding on objective ecological values, from individual culture to multidimensional security culture to national culture. Maps are like abstract frequency resonators of the understanding. one may attune to a map in order to learn from it. When a mapping resonates, it can provide for a response to any feedback, especially attack vectors. Having an understanding of the scope of the realm of all life on this planet, with its spheres, dimensions, and points, makes for a most secure foundation when dealing with critical infrastructure, such as the distribution of electricity. Maps which inspire clarity show that in order to continue with civilization, future generations must care for holistic ecological thriving as part of their culture. This is self-evident to those who are curious about the origin of everything. It is one thing to be able to point at anything human-made and see that it exists as help, and another thing to see the source path of origin of such a thing, to source. So I've filed this article under National Security, Culture, Deep Ecology, Care, and Consciousness, the 5 keywords I can use on Medium for an article. Well, thank you very much for tuning into this. I hope this episode provided the introductory insight to culture. I think a lot of people relate it to weird arts quite often. So those tuning in visually, I just put on my mustache, which I do in most of my episodes, to celebrate a bit of that. But it's actually part of my Stealth Recon series for the web application security testing aspect of this episodes of this podcast. And I just need to have fun, because some of this might sound not as fun, but the the joy in this is having gained some clarity in the depths of culture out there, and the fact that if one spends their working career in security the way right, so security meaning within security is information security. Within that, you have you can have corporate security, network security, application security, web application security, and so on. I'll explore this in other episodes, but the point is, what is one securing, and what needs to be secured in this at this time? It is 2024, and it's summer during this recording, and we have all this news if one tunes in to the global affairs. And I would say over the last few years, and at the moment every day now, the main news has to do with national security. And I have episodes that will be dedicated, that I'm developing and writing and working on, dedicated to the local intelligence series. The subtitle of this podcast is The Art of Civilian Intelligence. And that is because I believe where one is thermodynamically in this body, almost like a objective spirituality or aspects of it, is about where one is and how one participates in life. If it's not in society, then individually, holistically, and what's important. And these things to me are just obvious. Air is important, water is important in the sense of the rain and the rivers and the oceans and the streams and the dew in the morning. I'm not a tree-hugging hippie. These are extremely obvious things, that if the river is poisoned, yet the biggest companies on the planet are advancing artificial intelligence, and the top InfoSec workers are really focusing their attention on war and militarization of their own nations, just there is a lack of alignment on the human front And therefore, it's quite obvious that the artificial intelligence lack of alignment will simply be a mirroring of that. Therefore, we stand at the edge of the possible end of nature on this planet, as if it's not even significant. I mean, so this podcast setup is called Podcasting 2.0 because it involves value for value exchange. You can look this up. I'll focus on this in other episodes. But basically, I have a Bitcoin node live running in this space I'm in right now. And so the hardware running the software, the computing machine, has to be in a ecologically sound, holistic environment. It can't be like the air in here has to be quality air to a certain extent. I mean, there can't be a war going on. If I was completely poor, I'd have no electricity to run it. And why would I be poor? And so on. And it's like, there's some fundamentally wrong, like objectively. I'm not afraid to say this, and few people say this, I think, because they're not afraid of their reputation, but it's just misunderstood what objectivity is. And I'm talking about the fact that a rainbow has a certain amount of main colors, just like the days of the week, and just like the division of the octave. Those are objective things. Just like a human nose is built of, is the micro version of the macro proportionality of the rest of the body in an enfoldness. And so the big laws the cosmic laws are in everything micro as well. And so there is also an objective duty to, here's a different, in one sentence, what am I saying? So new fuelless energy sources that are possible according to the disclosure, the DPIA, Disclosure Project Intelligence Archive. Those energy sources are fuelless, apparently. Just think about that. What was I going to say about them? I think I'll bring it in through a mapping another time. But basically, let's see if I can remember. No, I don't remember off the top of my head there. Well, that's how I work, but yeah, maybe it's just a sign to return to it. But it had to do with what I was just saying. That it's on the personal individual level. Maybe if I pop up the map of this article again, over top of the article here. So that's why this section here is in pink. There's a box around the words individual, personal, culture in the section of defining cultures in part 1. Now this is because it's very significant and important. So yes, I remembered now. So fuelless energy sources must work with the cosmic laws on this planet. They must be aligned with them. That is the future of energy design. That is a very big thing. I'm glad I remembered. That is such a big point. What is the source of this? I know I came to this through my own mappings, but it has been stated to me through other light worker rhizomes, let's just call it for now. So other people and entities working in this direction. Yeah, we'll return to that, and I'll leave it at this for this time around. Going back to me visually here. Thank you for tuning in again. I hope this episode brought you closer to some culture. If you enjoy this podcast, you may offer support over NOSTR, my account there, and Fountain.fm is the platform that through which, when you create an account there, you can stream Satoshis to me through your own Bitcoin setup, which means directly on my sovereign central bank that I have in this room. I receive them directly to support this show and the ongoing work that I do. And I'll see you at the meetups.